Hey guys, it's Danielle with DMC Crochet. Thanks for coming back to my channel. Today we are going to talk about tension in your projects and what it means and how to figure out the tension in your work and also tension in your hands. So I wanted to make this video eventually. I had seen a few discussions on email groups and on social media about like tension in your work and how to get through it and what does it mean, and I was like, okay, I'll make a video on this eventually. But then this past weekend I had a personal experience with tension struggles, so I thought, well, why not make the video now while the experience is fresh in my brain. So before I get into it, I just wanted to ask you if you would please like this video if you like it, and if you don't like it, please let me know why. And if you have suggestions on what I could be doing differently, please submit those. I'm very open to that. And then too, like if you're a blind listener of my videos and there's something that you're not understanding or that I haven't been explaining clearly, please by all means let me know, because I want to be helpful in these videos. So then also if you could subscribe and then share my channel, I'd really appreciate it. So, okay, let's get into it. So I started working on this shawl this weekend, and it is called the Diadem shawl. So that's D as in Delta, I-A, D as in Delta, E-M, and as in Mike, and then it's a shawl. And I found the pattern on Ravelry, and that's spelled R-A-V like Victor, E-L-R-Y. And they also have an app called Ravit, so R-A-V as in Victor, I-T as in Tango. And I'll do a more in-depth video on what Ravelry is and how to get into it, and really how to organize your projects. But it is a community of fiber artists / enthusiasts. So you can like look for patterns, you can buy the patterns, sometimes they're free. You can look for like a specific yarn that you might like, let's say you have a Pound of Love by Lion Brand and you don't know what to make with it. You can look up that yarn and find examples of what people have made. So it's pretty cool. But I found this shawl, and right away the name of it really intrigued me. I wanted to, so we went on a little day trip on Sunday, and I was like, well, I just want something to crochet on the road. And I wanted to kind of stretch my skills because I do a majority of my like the projects I make off of YouTube videos, so I really wanted to practice my pattern reading. So I took my Braille display with me. I found this beautiful pattern. So yeah, this is the Diadem shawl. And if you don't know what a diadem is, it's like a crown or a cloth headband that like royals back in the day, like in Asia Minor, like around that area, used to wear. I don't know if they still wear them or not. But it made me think of the movie Aladdin and Princess Jasmine in the movie, and the little headband that she had on. And I am a Disney nerd. Well, okay, a Disney princess nerd. Because let me tell you, I did Disney trivia like a month ago and I was awful at it. But anyway, so this intrigued me. And then the cool part was the author of the pattern, which I will link in the description bar, because she made sure, like, she tagged her pattern as like, you know, shawl, one crochet, or, you know, one crocheted in one piece. Like, I don't remember the exact tags, but one of them was visually impaired. So I went into the pattern description before I purchased it, and it said that she had made her PDFs compliant with screen readers, and she had alt text for the images. So I just thought that was so cool. So I'll link her in the description bar, because I know, I want to say her name is Rachel, but I want to you know, give her credit where credit is due. So thank you very, very much for this beautiful pattern. And I just appreciate that, you know, she thought about accessibility. So definitely check her out. So anyway, I started making this, and I was so nervous because I was reading patterns instead of listening to a YouTube video, and I was working with this. So it's, I want to say this is a Sweet Delight yarn, I think, from Hobby Lobby, and the color is Mima's Blue, which, so it's kind of like a darker periwinkle. I love it. It's such a pretty color, but I've been wanting to use this yarn forever for something, and I just thought that this would be really pretty with the Diadem shawl. But anyway, I was so tense, and I was using a different hook too. I was using one of the Radiance hooks from Crochet.com. This one here, I believe this is an H hook. So anyway, I just was so tense that the yarn was just like fraying, and I was getting knots in it. I actually had to start the pattern over. This is the second go around, because the first one I had done my stitches so tight that one of them actually got into a knot, and so then when I went to take it out, I couldn't, and I had to cut the yarn, which was heartbreaking because I had to start all the way back over. So all that to say, like, the tension in your hands is so crucial to the success of your project, and having that consistent tension in your hands makes such a world of difference. And when I first started crocheting, I had no idea what tension even meant. Like, I didn't know. All I knew is that, like, some of my stitches were really loose, and then some of them were so tight I couldn't get my yarn through them. So what helped me, and here I'm actually gonna grab my my practice yarn so that you guys can see. Let me just pop a slip knot on it really quick. I should have had Jeopardy music, y'all. Okay, so I have a slip knot on my hook, and the tension in your project starts mattering the minute you start your project, from your slip knot on. So for example, this slip knot, I can wiggle it up and down on the neck of my hook with little effort. It doesn't move, it doesn't slide anywhere when I let it go, but all I have to do is just gently move it up or down on the neck of my hook. Now, if I'm gonna pull it, so I'm pulling it tight. So if my tension is super, super tight, where I have to almost like force the yarn to move up or down, your tension's already a little bit too tight, because what's going to happen is when you yarn over and try to pull through that slip knot, because your tension is so tight, it's not going to allow you to pull through. Okay? Now, conversely, if your slip knot is too loose, let me see if I can pick mine out. There we go. Okay, so let's say your slip knot has room to where you can get a piece of your finger in between your slip knot and your hook, and it's kind of like moving around without you even really having to put any force on it. So what's going to happen is when you yarn over to make your first chain is going to turn out super loose. Okay, like you'll be able to get your fingers through it. Now, in some of my previous videos, I intentionally make my chains super loose so that you can see the components of them, but that's not the tension you want. What I found really helpful, so I just took this chain one, the super loose chain one, off my hook. So what I did when I first started making my slip knots is I would pull them, I would put my hook in the slip knot, and then I would pull it just tight enough so that it moved, like I mentioned before, like it moves up and down on the neck of the hook easily. I don't have to force it, but at the same time, I have to do more than barely touch it to move it. I have to make an intentional effort to move that slip knot. So then when we chain, what I started to do is I would chain, and then I would pull my working yarn tight enough to where it was in that same tension of the slip knot, where I could move it on the hook and it was easy, but it wasn't so loose that it was just like moving when I barely tapped it. So when I crochet, what I do is I intentionally pull my working yarn to that same tension, which ends up being like I keep saying, like, you can move it up and down on your hook easily, but not so easily that like you tap it and it goes flying everywhere. Okay? And it's really important to have consistent tension when you're talking about gauge. I think that I've mentioned gauge in the past, and gauge is something that's really important, especially for patterns for garments. And it's like a recipe. So like your patterns, if you think about them, and I'm just chaining a really long chain on screen just so that you guys don't have to stare at an empty desk. I'm gonna end up double crocheting into this, but I'm doing just a really long chain right now. But what ends up happening when your pattern is like a recipe, so let's say, okay, if you want to make a homemade, I don't know, Betty Crocker cake, Betty Crocker uses a specific, brand of butter and a specific brand of sugar and a specific brand of cocoa powder. In order for your recipe to turn out just like Betty Crocker's, you're going to need to get the exact same materials that Betty Crocker has, right? The same ingredients. So if she uses like Hershey powder, you're going to want Hershey powder. If she uses Land O'Lakes butter, you're going to get Land O'Lakes butter. It's the same exact concept when you're looking at a pattern and the pattern creator has said, hey, you're going to want to use Red Heart Super Saver in the color aqua, and you're going to need 800 yards of it. They're telling you exactly what to use, what materials to use in order for you to get the same result they got. But what they're also telling you in some patterns, because some patterns just say straight out gauge is not important for the size of this pattern. And you'll find that a lot with like scarves and shawls, but like with sweaters or hats or baby dresses, gauge is super important because, okay, going back to the recipe idea. So let's say that in the recipe, you got the Hershey's chocolate, right? So you got the Hershey's cocoa powder and you got the Land O'Lakes butter, but Betty Crocker used a tablespoon of each and you threw in a quarter tablespoon, or you threw in the whole container. Your end result is not going to be the same as Betty Crocker's. Yours is going to be either way too much or way too little of those two, of the chocolate and the butter. I must be hungry. Actually, no, Brian made omelets and they were really good. So when your pattern says that tension matters, you need to be mindful of that, and you need to crochet a gauge swatch. And I know a lot of people don't like doing it. A lot of people think that it's a waste of time. I have learned the hard way that gauge is important. I've spent so much time making like baby dresses or hats. I made one of those like baby Yoda hats for my brother's niece, and I was heartbroken because it came out too small because Danielle did not use a gauge. Now, if I had used a gauge, I would have realized, hey, you're crocheting a little bit too tight. You might want to go up a hook size. So what a gauge is, and the pattern will give you measurements, and most of the time it's a 4 inch by 4 inch swatch is what they call it, of fabric that you crochet. So let's say it'll tell you like 4 inches by 4 inches, 6 rows of single crochets is what it'll tell you, or whatever formula that the pattern creator did to get the number of stitches per inch. And it's really, like I say, it's really crucial when you're making something to size, because the other thing of it is like, let's say you're a super loose crocheter. What happens if you're a loose crocheter is you might end up using more yarn than what the pattern creator called for. And like, let's say it was a certain dye lot of yarn, and I talked about dye lots in my video about what to look for on yarn labels. I think that was number 10. I think 10 or 12. But let's say it's this, it's a dye lot and you crochet loose and you're, 10 rows short of finishing this one-of-a-kind masterpiece that you've spent so much time on. So you run back to the store or you go back online. And the thing with buying yarn online is that very rarely do they tell you the lot number of your yarn. And they even tell you, like, buy enough yarn at once because dye lots can't be guaranteed. So let's say, I don't know, let's say you're making something in black, okay, and you're like 10 rows short. So you go back, you buy another skein of yarn, you go in to finish it, but because of the dye lot situation, you got, you know, everything in this really dark, rich black color, and then your last 10 rows end up being like a little bit lighter in color because the dye lots don't match. So that could be, you know, and you were working on this and it was going to be a gift for your dad or something, and now the colors don't exactly match. And I know for, like, personally, because I am blind, like, to me that doesn't matter. And I know, like, the people who know and love me will take my gifts and, you know, they won't care. They won't be like, oh, it's different dye lots. You know, they you know, understand it's from the heart. But you also want to take pride in your work, and you also want it to look nice. And then too, if you're trying to crochet things to sell, your customers might not be as forgiving as a relative to say like, oh, okay, like, it doesn't matter, it's still pretty, I'll wear it. They'll say, well, no, I wanted this all in navy blue, and here you're giving me everything navy blue, but this shade, this piece of it right here is obviously darker or lighter. So that's something to be mindful of with the gauge thing again. Now, if you're a tight crocheter, you probably won't have the issue of running out of yarn, but what might happen is your garment might be too small to have the drape that you want, and the drape is just how it sits on the body. Or it might be like your stitches might be so tight that the ends of your projects curl up, or you can't get your hook through as easily. So it becomes like a tension issue, literal tension issue in your hands. And you really could mess up your hands just by like being so tense and not being able to put the yarn through. And also, crochet is supposed to be relaxing. You don't want to like stress yourself out and have to have the carpal tunnel surgery because you weren't, you know, loose enough with your crochet. So all that to say, the tension and gauge really do matter. So there's different measuring tools that you can get as a blind person to measure your swatches. So you can look on, gosh, I think it's the National Braille Press has a modified tape measure. I might actually order one just to see how it works. I have a tape measure that's yellow, and then it's got really big dark colored numbers on it, so I can see that on a good day. You know, sometimes I struggle. I was talking to a group of other blind ladies who do knit and crochet, and one of them said, well, if you know your swatch is going to be 3x5, just use a 3x5 index card, which is genius. So there's a lot of different ways that you can measure gauge, and tension has a lot to do with it. Also, the weather has a lot to do with your tension. How you're feeling has a lot to do with your tension. Your concentration level, like if you're so hyper focused like I was this weekend on this Diadem shawl because I wanted it to be right, it wasn't as enjoyable as I know that it could have been. I moved my practice yarn, and I've got the Diadem shawl right here in front of me now. So like you can see, for those who can see, the ends of this are curling in. Okay, so it's supposed to be a flat piece, but it's not. And even here in the middle, like there's a little bubble because I was crocheting so tight and I wasn't enjoying it. I was struggling with my stitches, and then my hook kept getting stuck, and it was a hot mess. But I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna finish it because I love it. And you know, it's a lesson for me. Now, let me show you this other shawl that I'm working on. So let me move the diadem out of the way. So this other shawl, it's actually a pattern that I'm writing. It's an original pattern that I'm writing. Now, this is something that I was really excited to start using, or to start creating, because I've never created a shawl pattern before, so I wanted to try it, so I was excited. The yarn is the Sugar Wheel by Hobby Lobby, or by Yarn Bee, I guess, which is the Hobby Lobby house brand. and the color is Forever Fruity, I think it is, something like that. But it's a cotton worsted. This other one, the Mima's Blue, is acrylic. But this cotton, I was so excited to start using. I wanted to make a summer shawl, and I just wanted to try it on my own. I was also using another, like, size J Radiance hook, but I had already handled it, you know, with the other shawl, with the Diadem shawl, so I wasn't like nervous about it. I knew how it would behave. I knew how my hand would respond to it. So I was just having so much fun with this one. I was letting myself make mistakes. I was letting myself frog my work, which, if you don't know what frogging is, so when you frog your work, you're ripping out the stitches. So it says rip it like a frog. Get it? But I was just being way more kind to myself when I was starting out with this, and my tension was just so much smoother, so much more relaxed. I've gotten a lot farther on this. I started both of these on Sunday, and I had to put the Diadem shawl down, and that's okay. Like, put down the work that you need to think through or you need to process. I actually might start the Diadem shawl over, like completely over, just to give myself that, you know, a pass to say, hey, you tried it, let's try again. So this this shawl that I'm working on, this one that I called it Fabian. I named it after my little sister. But it just came so much easier to me, even though I was making the pattern up as I went, because I didn't let the tension get to me. So that brings me to my final piece on this, because I had apparently a lot more to say than I thought I did. So I'm sorry for rambling, but I think it's important. You have to take care of your hands. In my day job, I am on a computer all the time, and then I crochet like on lunch breaks or on the bus, or really I crochet anytime I'm not working. But taking care of your hands is really important, and it's also something to honor yourself, to do a little bit of self-care. So one thing that I will say is, like, cotton is very absorbent. So this Fabian shawl that I'm working on is cotton, and so it's absorbs the moisture in my hands. So what I intentionally do is so this is just a body butter by Shea Moisture. Schultz is growling in his sleep. So it's just their body butter. I like Shea Moisture. I use their stuff in my hair. But so I picked up this body butter because I have a lot of dry skin. Like, I'm just, yeah, because I don't drink enough water, I think. But I just use this on my hands, and I intentionally, like, put it on my hands. I do this before bed just to kind of wind down for the evening. The other thing that I do, which I don't have one here with me, but I use a stress ball and just squeeze. So I'm making like a squeezing motion on screen, because that helps you kind of like just flex your muscles in your fingers and in your hands, and then it kind of breaks the repetitive motion that you do, whether it's with your computer all day or if you do other things with your hands, like if you sew all day, or if you quilt all day, or if you cook all day, or if you clean all day, or if you crochet all day. So I just wanted to say, like, I like this Shea Moisture body butter because there's like pieces of shea butter in there. Here, I will put some in my hand. It smells really good, first of all. You can get this at Target, Walgreens. You can get it on, I got mine on Amazon. I think that it was $12. But there's pieces of shea butter in this. So it's not just like a cream. It almost has the consistency of cottage cheese, almost. But the minute you start rubbing it into your hands, it starts melting, and it is just like such a nice silky feeling. And what I like about it too is it doesn't stay oily on your skin unless you use like a whole lot, and a little bit does go a long way. But it doesn't just sit on your skin and create like an oily feeling. It absorbs really well, really nicely into your skin, and it's just a nice thing to do for your hands, and it smells really, really good, like I said. So then what I do here, I'll zoom out a little. So what I do is I hold my hand, so I have my left hand holding the wrist of my right hand, and all I'm doing is I'm putting a little bit of pressure and I'm pulling towards my fingertips. So I'm just squeezing and pulling. And that's really all I do. I mean, I don't do it like, I'm not a masseuse or anything. I have no skill or knowledge in that area, but it feels good. So that's just something else, you know, speaking of tension, like, you've got to make sure that you're taking care of yourself and you're putting that time into yourself as well, because that transfers into your crochet work too. So like if you had a stressful day and you're trying to crochet but you're not relaxing, that's going to transfer down into your work. So anyway, this has been super long, but I wanted to get this out there. Thank you guys for watching, and if you have questions or anything in the meantime, feel free to reach out. My email address is dmadecrochet@gmail.com, or you can reach out here on YouTube. All right, thanks guys. Bye. Hey guys, I just wanted to pop back in real quick to let you know the name of the pattern designer it's spelled Rachy Newin. I didn't find a website for her, but I did find her Facebook page, her Etsy page. She's on Ravelry, and she sent, so I had emailed her thanking her for the accessible pattern, and she wrote back and she's like, oh, you know, I hope you enjoy it, that kind of thing. And then in her signature, she had a link to sign up for the newsletter, and the newsletter asks, what is your preferred method of reading? So it's got like HTML or plain text, and I thought that that was really neat too, because she was thoughtful about the just how the text appears to the subscribers to her newsletter. So go show her some love. I already love the one pattern I have from her. I'll probably get more. So all right, I'm leaving for real now. Bye.